part with some numbers, agreeing to what my fellow panelists have been saying. The Gambia diaspora, as somebody said early in the morning, is a jewel. We have to mine it. We have to mine it. Do you know 4% of the population of the Gambia is out there as diaspora? And 63% of that 4% is highly skilled and competent people. So when we then listen to capacity issues and institutional issues, I get unease because we can do it. Let's just create this enabling environment. And most of them are the youth. Because now the trend is not brain drain, but brain circulation. Not even brain converging back home, like people like me. We are the old ones. But these young ones, just circulate your knowledge. Go invent whatever, bring it here. That's what we are looking for. Yeah. Work with us for the new Gambia.
Thank you. We can take another questions.
My name is Suleiman Kawi. First of all, I have to thank TAF, Global Africa, for making this a very important event for not only the panelists and the people audience here, but also for persons with disabilities who are part and parcel of society as well. I have a question and an overseeing to Mr. Federa regarding the blueprint. I know we talked about persons with disabilities, but again, if you look at the average percentage in this country, we have less than 15% of disabled people working or engage in business sectors. How soon is the government ready to address these issues? Because disabled people are tired of being in the streets and begging all the time. We need to look at ways and means of addressing their issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Olimata Tal. I'm an international journalist and publicist, originally from the Gambia, West Africa, and I'm trying to come back home permanently. I've been residing in the Caribbean and the United States and also the UK for a period of about 15 years. I've done a number of work in the entertainment industry and tourism and in media. And I'm also a product of Georgia. You spoke about Georgia. At the age of 17, I was the youth mayor of Atlanta, and I got the key to the city for the work I did around youth leadership development and anti-violence. We could sit here and talk about accolades and names. The issue is building leadership. So there's a couple of questions that I want to ask. The first question is in the area of education. Working in Jamaica and in a country that is similar to the Gambia that was colonized by the English, I see growth and stability in their society in many ways. However, I also see many mistakes. And one of the mistakes that I see is that they have not taken the time to create an African-centered curriculum within the school system. And I feel that that is something that is going to be necessary in the new Gambia. So that's the first question. As we work on the educational system, whether it's technical side, because I think you need both, not either or, whether it's the technical side or we're dealing with education at large, will we look at creating an African-centered curriculum? The second question I have is, as a businesswoman and CEO of my own company, one of the challenges that I've had within my company is investment, larger investment, not only from Gambia but internationally. So I'm hoping, will the new Gambia create opportunities for young businessmen and women like myself to get loans and investment so that we can take our companies that have done already quite a lot for the Gambian economy and take it to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Alhaji Mustafa Njai, thank you very much for organizing this important event. I am a retired entrepreneur and I had the panelists here. They said a lot of good things about the future. But my question to them is, can we achieve them without a housing bank financing? Can we achieve them without an agricultural bank? Can we achieve them without a development financing institutions? If you go to Kenya, for example, they are the leading exporter of flowers. They used to export, I think, almost over $1 billion annually to the European market. I was fortunate to set up a flower farm in the Gambia in the 80s or the 90s, early 90s. And the funding was from IFC and the Commonwealth Development Corporations. We have a constraint in this country. We can't achieve all these proposals without the financial development institutions. There is no way we can't. This is the key. Our problems here is the banking system, the interests are high. You can't achieve it, and you have a lot of entrepreneurs here. Entrepreneurship is a skill. It's a science of its own. You can only achieve it, you can conceive a very good idea, do your feasibility studies, achieve a good feasibility studies with good returns. But the bottom line is, you can't have funding. You can't have funding because you go to the banking institution, they kill the project before the financing is finalized. My question to the panel is, how can we achieve all these good proposals? How? Without a development financing institution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My question goes to Madam Lucy. You've worked and lived in Rwanda. And Rwanda went through a genocide in 1994. Gambia, we had a coup in 1994. So what are the policies that Rwanda has done to reach where they are today that Gambia did not do? And if we are going to look forward 20 years to come, what can Gambia do so that we will overtake Rwanda? Thank you. We start with Lucy. That's the first question.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I started working in Rwanda in 1999. It was just after the genocide. And in fact, I was told, you are fair colored, they might think you are Tutsi, you might not come back. But I was also intrigued by the project. That's which I had in hand. Because all the donors, just like similar situation, all development partners kind of disappeared or sitting on the fence. Lucky for Rwanda, I think the World Bank was right on the forefront, and so one of the key projects, apart from budget support, was this project, which was like some called it a Christmas tree, my colleagues, because it addressed everything in it. But in that everything, we also had the president who said he had certain things he wanted to see seen in that. So he had a vision. He had a vision, and his main target was the youth. So we had to create a capital venture fund, and we had to and we divided it into two, and we had to have startups for the youth. But then there was a lot of discussion on how that could happen. And talking about financing is always an issue. So that's exactly what President Kagame wanted to address. Okay, I have the youth, we have ideas, we have projects, we have incubators, we have all these things, we have the nice business plan, but then how do we go the next step? The financial system was not catering for the SMEs, the small people. So what can we do? So this project had to look into that. So we started with the venture capital fund, then we modified everything and come up with a business plan competition, and at the end of the day, the ones who win receive a grant, and that grant goes towards as collateral, because the issue also is collateral. So it went towards the collateral, and they got the money, and we provided financing for the banks to provide technical assistance to these entrepreneurs to make sure that they don't fail, they will actually succeed. So that was just one, but actually vision, there was a clear vision. There was clear understanding of what was needed to be done. One of the things was image building. So again, Gambia needs to build its image. You have to, whether it's true or not, but you have to build this image. What do you want? Because it's called branding. How do you want to brand yourself?
Very important.
Are we the smiling coast? Are we the what else apart from that smiling coast? We have to brand ourselves and let everybody believe that's the Gambia. You hear that, it's the Gambia. So that's what happened. And then technology, investing in technology. Kagame saw that there was it's the easiest way to reach the people. You use technology. You use, so there was radio, it made efforts for television. It was poor quality, it's dancing up and down, but it was there. The radio, everywhere you go, it was there. And then promoted, everything done in English, French, but you also have to have your local language where you can reach everybody. And then today it has been flipped. Local languages and then the rest. So those are the things I would say out of the cuff that got Rwanda to where it is. Of course, discipline and keeping a deaf ear to the noise around the country, because there was, up to today, Rwanda is still being criticized, but they are going somewhere. They are going somewhere, and they are moving very fast. Why? Because they say everything has to be homegrown. Again, as I think somebody talked about African education for African, African curriculum. So you need to take whatever is out there and dismantle it and assemble it to fit the Gambian environment. So that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If you can respond to the questions and just quickly final thoughts, because we've run out of time.
Okay, all right. We just very quickly, maybe I just do the finance one, because this is always coming up. Two perspectives. One is, it is opportunity. We keep talking about financing as a problem, but it is opportunity. There are many wealthy people who do not know how to deploy their resources to help finance. I don't have a time to talk here, but I will suggest that anybody who would like, read the book written by two former University of Chicago professors, one of who just finished his tenure as governor of the Reserve Bank of India, Raghuram Rajan, who was a chief economist at the IMF, and Luigi Zingales. I've written an interesting book. It's titled Saving Capitalism from the Capitalists, and how access to funding is easier in some countries than others. Look, the typical American kid who goes to a first-class business school can access funding with no collateral, anything, from certain funds like a search fund, because some entrepreneurs have just put together a list of 1,000 doctors, say, who earn maybe $300,000 a year, and the world will not collapse if they lose $5,000. But if that young person's business plan produces a winning thing, they may make $1 million, and so they're willing to do. And so we need entrepreneurship in the area of financing also. The resources are there, but we need financial system entrepreneurs. So that's opportunity. And the other side of it, which is the bit that's talked about, the government. Government has an important role to play, sure. But it has to be around context. Like we just heard from Madam Lucy about Kagame's strategy. If you have a clear national strategy going forward, and this particular goal is, you can have what I like to call smart industrial policy. I'm not one of those believers. I don't agree with all the talk from our South Korean economist friend, Jeju Chang at Cambridge. No, I don't agree on this whole bad Samaritans thing. But we need, just like Justin Lin at the World Bank was trying to suggest, we need some smart industrial policy that can allow you, provide opportunity within this so-called latent comparative advantage. Their very intelligent government policy can support financing of entrepreneurs and help make things happen. A mix of both is important. going forward. I can talk some more, but very importantly, finally, this point about branding, the image of a country. The cost, the pricing of risk depends on perception of the country. And many times, financing is so costly to us because of that pricing of risk. And we need to work on it as countries.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Jami?
I will take it up from where Prof has just stopped. Branding. Most successful countries are driven by leaders. Leaders with vision. Lucy spoke about Rwanda. Rwanda took inspiration from Singapore. It's a simple logic. Yeah. It's a small country. Yeah. You have to know where your strength lies. And as small countries, I always say we have to make smart choices. I've traveled the whole of Rwanda for many years, just like Lucy did. And we have a Gambian economist who was, until I think 3 months ago, the UNDP resident rep. He's always lamenting the same problems to me. That's Lamin Mane. He's in Addis Ababa now. Just 3 weeks ago, we are in the same conversation. It's all about people, giving support to the leader. But the leader must also be smart in getting the right advisors and the right advice. Dr. Songba spoke about that today. He's one passionate Gambian who has links all over the globe. He has not been resident. Mr. Njai can bear witness to that. Let us also identify our diaspora carefully. Some of them are doing well in businesses abroad. Let us engage them. The state can do that. And our diplomats have a big task. We now have to engage in development diplomacy. Let us benchmark ourselves, identify the diaspora, the strengths that lie in the diaspora. Ethiopia and others they've mentioned, they finance mega billion-dollar projects using the diaspora bond. The Ghanaians did similar things to raise funds. If we can bring that money, as I said, you don't need to collect the dollars here. All people abroad will just be telling somebody, we want to give Uncle Tafangom 100,000, and he's giving dollars. But that dollar that is kept there is here to help us finance, create institutions with entrepreneurs, clear vision. The government must rally the youth all the time, but our biggest strength would lie in looking next door. Let me tell Gambian youths about that. We should not mix there. The Senegalese believe in themselves. Put them in the diaspora. Often they don't want plugging. They'll do it first, then they'll venture into things. Take people across the border, young students from university, high school, let them go and observe the work ethics in Senegal. At least we should, for the time being, try to discourage attire. During the day, let's do it in the evening and in the leisure times.
Thank you.
That will be mine.
Thank you, Mr. Jam. Yes, Mr. Fadel.
Just a quick response to what Suleiman has raised in terms of what government intends to do for the differently able. I think it is very important, like somebody made allusion to this, and again, you would say it's not a new concept, but again, it's about inclusive growth and development. Okay, despite the fact that our growth pattern has been very volatile, but even when we grow, sometimes the growth is not very inclusive. We want to make sure that these policies that we're talking about are as inclusive as possible from the formulation stage to the implementation, and to make sure that whatever barriers hinder the effective participation of the differently able are addressed by government. And this starts from the schools to other workplaces to make sure that our environment, especially the public environment, is very inclusive and caters for the differently able. Because for a start, if you go to most public offices, they are not user-friendly for the differently able. So those are things that we are thinking of in terms of this National Development Plan. Like I said at the beginning, this plan is what? Is a National Development Plan. And it's part of some of the ways of engaging the diaspora. Government intends to set up a diaspora directorate within government that will at least be able to help us formulate a diaspora strategy and policy, but also make sure that our embassies, our diplomatic missions are very, very friendly and help us reach out to the diaspora. Because one thing we know that we have a lot of expertise out there in the diaspora, but again, it's difficult to have what we don't, as at now in government, have a comprehensive database of this expertise that exists in the diaspora and where they do. And I think those are first things that we need to have a handle on to know where these people are, what their expertise is, so that we can effectively engage them. They don't have to be resident or they don't have to be physically present. Even remotely using the powers of the ICT, we can effectively engage them. I want to thank Mr. Njai and the organizers for giving government an opportunity to participate in this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen,
Mr. Chair,
this was
Mr. Chair, can I indulge you to offer me an opportunity to just have a brief word? You, of course, I think this would be a good point at which to dovetail what I have to say with what the Fadera and previously Mr. Usman Jammeh have said regarding the role of the diaspora in national development. Of course, some of you would have heard, I'm just having to insist to have this thing said because, of course, it ties in very well with what all the other speakers have said, and they all understand the significant and critical role that the diaspora can play in enhancing but contributing to national development. Of course, some of you would have heard of a project called the MSDG project, and the Secretary General had just referred to some of the policy points that we have had, introduced by the MSDG. Now it's called the Migration and Sustainable Development Project, and some of the policy announcements that have been made have been echoed by some of the other speakers here this evening. Of course, we spoke about the National Development Plan and the MSDG, the Migration and Sustainable Development Project, led by no other than Professor Fall, one of the earlier contributors to today's deliberations. Becoming aware of the National Development Plan, we're grateful that the government had given us an opportunity to make submissions to that plan. And some of the things that have been really included in that that submission relate to the diaspora strategy, which is a 10-year diaspora strategy looking at a number of areas of intervention by the diaspora. And they deal with the Diaspora Directorate, which you have just referred to, Mr. Fadera, within the confines of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to look specifically at how to leverage the contribution, and the expertise, and the resources of the diaspora towards national development. We are looking at things like how to reduce the cost of remittances, for instance, from what it is today to perhaps 3% by 2020. You must be aware of that. And negotiations and discussions have been taking place with the government, of course, but specifically with the central bank to see how to make that happen so that remittances would really go through formal channels. And it ties in, of course, to transforming remittances to development funding. And the more you can capture of that remittance, rather than allowing it to go to parallel market and other avenues, but putting it through to the formal channels will allow them to capture, if you like, the benefits of remittances and transforming it, therefore, into national development funding.
Thank you.
Now, of course, there's also the Directorate, of course, Diaspora Direct Investment, which is another policy that we've been making towards the National Development Plan. And diaspora as well, there is an 8, just minutes, I will not take too much of your time. Let me just wrap up. Of course, it's, I've been insisting to say something. Now, also, there are political dividends, of course, as far as the diaspora is concerned. We in the diaspora have long been asking for the franchise to be extended to the diaspora to allow us to vote. I recall historically there's a saying, no representation without contribution, no taxation without representation. Of course, the diaspora contributes substantially I think 20% perhaps is an underestimation.
22%.
If you take into account the informal channels through which remittances go, you're looking perhaps at a much higher percentage of GDP contributed by the diaspora, and therefore we think that is a basis for allowing as well the diaspora to vote in national elections and presidential elections, for instance, perhaps even considering the diaspora as the 8th region of the Gambia, transforming it therefore immediately and automatically into the more affluent and more richest region of the country. So there are a whole host of things that the diaspora can do. What we need to do, though, is to find ways and means of leveraging these very substantial resources that we have out there. And the MSDG project will be looking to do that and informing that the National Development Plan is informed by some of the policies that we are thinking about right now where we are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we will have to end this very exciting and insightful interventions. And thank you, James, for those ending thoughts. I have the mic. And I must say something. I want to wrap up this event by saying that delivering on the new Gambia, rising to the policy and implementation challenges. This was our theme, isn't it?
Yeah.
It requires education from what we've gathered from the panel. It requires tools, work ethic, drive, and responsibility. Despite the challenges we emerged from as a nation, the many socioeconomic and political challenges the new Gambia continues to face, the Gambia offers huge and endless opportunities for investors and her citizenry. I think this was encapsulated in the morning and in the afternoon's final session. The new Gambia, with its almost 2 million people, with a profound diverse culture, natural resources, and most importantly, our people, the Gambia, this new Gambia, is the last frontier in West Africa for sustainable growth and development, I must say. No wonder Mr. Mustafa Njai comes back home from our great country, the Nigeria. There is a secret in the Gambia. And as it was alluded earlier by Dr. Sonkor, we're a blessed nation. And we should and must not take that for granted. For the new Gambia to realize her potential, it requires massive support of investors and massive commitment of our diaspora to go beyond the exotics of being a diaspora and the expectation of to be seeked to come and rescue motherland. It is a collective responsibility. We have huge talent pool, as is exhibited. There is no country today or no gathering of significance that you wouldn't find a Gambian, and increasingly young, who plays a central role in the deliberation and proffering the best of ideas. In order for us to attract such support and involvement, our government and her policymakers must demonstrate and put in place sustainable capacity to establish and implement what has been outlined as our blueprint, not the government blueprint, but our blueprint. If not, it will be in vacuum. No policy regime, no implementation will happen without the competencies and capabilities of our people. We must not sideline anyone who have the capability or the capacity or the experience no matter where they are. And we can't build a new Gambia. We can't implement this wonderful blueprint that some are quite skeptical without the centrality of the youth. We cannot implement it with mediocrity. We must seek and engage those amongst us who have the commitment, who have the capacity, who have the experience in the country, retired or no retired, or diaspora or no diaspora. The only measure must be capability and competence. Anyone who can add value to uplift us from poverty. This document means nothing if we can't uplift our people from poverty. Our policies means nothing if we cannot substantively engage the youths and understand the fact that they are, and I maintain, they are the game changers. And we all must have game-changing mindset. If we don't have game-changing mindset, it will be a huge challenge. To have a game-changing mindset, you must be disruptive. In today's world, those that are on top are disruptive, are capable, are competent, are passionate, have the drive, are restless, sleepless, drink a lot of coffee, and are youthful, and they create the billion-dollar industry across the world. If this country neglects them, it neglects its future and its sustainability and its security. Furthermore, if we don't engage and rethink the entire education landscape of this country and massively invest to ensure that the requisite infrastructure is in early child development to primary and secondary schools, to university. We have only one university, and we must care. We must not shy away because we have the capability and the means to educate our children abroad. Majority of Gambians, that's their hope. And if it wasn't for it today, the existing capacity will not be. So it is in our collective interest, if we are serious in implementing capacity, if we are serious in implementing this blueprint and any other blueprint, or to uplift and build the Gambia, we cannot do it by hearsay and rhetorics. It is only competence and meritocracy that will take us to that envious place where Rwanda, where Singapore, where Dubai. We need not be them. We can be the Gambia. We have what it takes. We have the people in the room, outside of the room. If given the space, they can and must and will do it. It is up to us. Gambia is for all of us. And just look at the talent in the room. And we are not the majority. So what it will take for New Gambia is in us and amongst us. It's not only diaspora, it's people who are here, people who have retired, who think they are retired. But all I've had, they have not retired. Are they retired? Why do you want to retire? I've never heard of an entrepreneur who is retired. They can't. They believe they are. They talk about it, but just watch their moves. Their minds are restless. We need Gambians to be restless, to be creative, to be problem solvers, to be innovators, to be open-minded, to be team-oriented, and to collaborate and empower each other. We must be each other's keepers if we have to forge ahead. We have to stop this down and pulling down and labeling if we want to move ahead. We have to have the right attitude and the commitment to work. It's not easy to come back home as a diaspora. And it was alluded earlier. I came back home. It was never easy. But if you come back home and you are committed to uplift and to contribute, you are focused and you will impact and you will change lives. We must not ask for, what are you going to do for me, or what are you going to give for me? Gambia is ours. You come home, no entitlement. Roll your sleeves and get to business. With abundance of entrepreneurship, I think Jibril mentioned it earlier, social enterprises that are led by social innovation and thought leadership will contribute to wealth creation across this country. We cannot only allow ourselves to just have few who succeed and who benefit. We will never be that new Gambia. I thank you all, and God bless you.